Hey, Professor here. This is a comprehensive guide for the Protection Paladin. And so after watching this video, hopefully you will have a better understanding of your Prot Paladin. So what we'll do is we will go into first your talents, and then artifact, and then gears and legendaries, and then add-ons, keybinds, macros, things like that. Then playstyle and abilities, and then I'll show you some clips maybe from a Mythic Plus and a raid scenario so you can see this stuff in action. Alright, so let's get started with your talents. So we'll open up our talents and you'll see how the first row, it's pretty important actually. So your Holy Shield is going to allow you to block spells. And so remember, anytime we're talking about this, we want to make sure that we're maximizing what we pick with our gear or our talents, making sure we're using it. So you can't just expect to have the same, one size fits all talents. Okay, so Holy Shield is something that you're going to do when you know that you're taking spell damage, and a lot of it, right? So it's going to allow you to block spells, and your block chance is pretty high, especially with the new Antorus set bonuses. And so your Vindicator Shield will increase your block chance by 10%, and then also while you're not affected by Shield of the Righteous, that's also increased even more. So notice how my block chance is right around 70%, which is pretty good. You're going to be able to block 40% of your incoming damage every time you block, and so if you're able to block spells, that's awesome. However, if there's not much spell damage, then you don't really need this. So Blessed Hammer is something that is going to reduce your physical damage, and so I press this, and notice how it's really cool because I usually kite when I do this, so I can just kind of run away from who I'm attacking, and then I can, have them walk into that. Or even if I'm not kiting, it's nice because every time it hits them, it reduces the damage of their next auto attack by 12%. So that's great. And it does a decent amount of damage too. So I usually have Blessed Hammer. And Consecrated Hammer is something that I usually don't do. Now let me grab it for a second. Notice how I no longer have Blessed Hammer. That was replaced with Hammer of Righteous. So this says that Hammer of Righteous has no cooldown, and it says that it's the effects of your consecration are always had, right? So if you stand in your consecration, it helps you out, right? So for example, your Shield of Righteous, when you're standing in your consecrate, it will be buffed by your consecrate. But if it actually is interesting. So if you go to Consecrated Hammer, it doesn't even say it on the tooltip anymore. But if you go to Blessed Hammer, notice how it says while you're standing in your consecrate, Shield of Righteous effects are increased by 20%. So pretty much Consecrated Hammer is going to give you that all the time. However, I don't find this useful because most of the time I have 100% uptime on my consecration, and when I'm not in my consecration, I'm usually kiting or something like that, and I don't really need the effects of it anyway. So don't really usually go Consecrated Hammer. I will go Blessed Hammer, and the nice thing is if you wear the legendary ring, the Soul of the High Lord, you can actually have the best of both worlds here, and you can grab both of these. Moving on, we have First Avenger, Bastion of Light, and Crusader's Judgment. First Avenger is going to be your pick for when you want to do damage. So especially multi-target, like when your Avenger Shield can hit 3 targets, or if you have the legendary legs more than 3. But the idea is this is going to buff your Avenger Shield, and it's going to allow you to get more procs of your Avenger Shield. It's definitely going to boost your damage output. However, it doesn't really help you much with defense, right? So Bastion of Light would come in there. I have it here. I don't really use it much anymore, Bastion of Light. If it lines up nicely with some boss cooldowns, maybe pick it, but most of the time I don't do this anymore, especially when you get better with managing your Shield of Righteous. You don't really need it. But you can try it out. So Crusader's Judgment is going to be where you go for your defense. And the reason why is, especially for like single target boss fights, right? Because what you can do now is your judgment has 2 charges. So think about all this. So you're gonna judgment, and it's only on a 5-second cooldown. And every time you judgment, it reduces the cooldown of your Shield of the Righteous. So let me Shield of the Righteous, get it like completely on cooldown, right? And then watch it. See the cooldowns being reduced? So it's reduced by 2 seconds or 4 seconds if it crits. So your judgment is going to reduce the cooldown of your Shield of Righteous, which is therefore going to allow you to Shield of the Righteous more often. So having the 2 stacks of the judgment really allows you to make maximum use out of your judgment, which makes maximum cooldown reduction out of your Shield of Righteous. It also not just gives you 2 stacks, it also allows you to get another charge of judgment every time you have the Grand Crusader proc. If you don't know what that means, go to your spell book, go to your passive called Grand Crusader. When you avoid a melee attack or use Hammer of Righteous, you will have 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown of your Revenger Shield. That's how you're getting your Revenger Shield resets. However, that's also going to give you another charge of judgment. So super nice because you're just popping judgments out all the time, which is reducing the cooldown of your Shield of Righteous. So that's works really well together. So I would definitely recommend that. And let's move on to this next row here. So Fist of Justice, okay, we just talked about being able to judgment all the time, right? So every 5 seconds, and you got 2 stacks. So think about how that works with Fist of Justice. So let's say I stun here, and then watch the cooldown. Ready? Okay, and then 36, and then it's already down to 22. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, you're able to get a lot of cooldown reduction on your Hammer of Justice. So that's going to be super beneficial to you. And remember that when you stun something, it's not doing damage to you. So it's really nice to be able to do that all the time and just reduce the damage you take, like in a Mythic Plus from mobs or whatnot. So the next row is pretty interesting. Now you could also go with Repentance or Binding Light, it's up to you, but Fist of Justice really works out well, especially with our 5-second cooldown on Judgment. Blessing of Spell Warding is something that you will pick when you know that there's spell damage, a lot of it, especially if you want to immune certain boss abilities. It is unbeatable. It is so good. I cannot speak highly enough about this talent. A lot of people don't understand how you can use it effectively. I'll give you a few examples. So when you click this, it will replace your I'll show you. So Blessing of Protection, right? It's usually a 5-minute cooldown and it protects you from physical damage. Well, when you do this, it replaces it, and it's a 3-minute cooldown, and it protects you or anybody from magical damage for 10 seconds. A great part about this is that you're not going to lose aggro. So usually when you bop yourself, unless you taunt, you're going to be losing aggro of whoever's attacking you. Because they are no longer able to, auto attack you because you're protected from physical damage. But if you have your Blessing of Spell Warding, you can still be attacked by those people, so you can pop it on yourself as a defensive from a big magic attack. So I'll give you a couple examples. One would be Lower Karazhan. Okay, so if you go to Adventure Guide, I guess, Dungeons, and so we'll go to Return to Karazhan. In Lower Karazhan, this Huntsman boss, right? So you go to his abilities, and I recommend doing this if you're not familiar with what happens. So be familiar with this. So Shared Suffering is an ability that usually kills you on a high Mythic Plus if you're not careful, but it does 3.5 million shadow damage, and obviously, on Mythic that's going to increase. Now it's 5 million, and if you do Mythic Plus, it's going to be, pretty much one-shotting you. So Prot Paladins are literally one of the only tanks that can do this fight like really well, because all they have to do is on one of those Shared Sufferings, they can just literally become immune to it, and it's just awesome, right? So that's one example. Another example would be, let's say, the last boss of Black Recold. Okay, last boss of Black Recold, Ravencrest. Okay, abilities, stage 2, Shadowbolt Volley, right? It inflicts 1.8 million shadow damage to everybody. If you're familiar with a high mythic plus tyrannical on this, the first Shadowbolt Volley usually one-shots everybody if you're not careful. So this would give you just an extra immunity to that. You don't have to even use it on yourself. I usually use it on somebody else, like my healer or something, and somebody who doesn't have an immunity in my group, and then that just brings an extra immunity to the table. Another boss, I'm not going to go through them all, okay? But just to give you an idea, the second to last boss, which I consider the gatekeeper of Cathedral Eternal Night on a high mythic plus, abilities, notice how this chaotic energy, where usually you have to run into the middle on this boss, you can stay out, and it makes it really nice because those adds that come sometimes do a knockback and they knock everybody out and then everybody dies. Well, you can actually stay out and continue tanking and don't even have to move into the center. So that's another great example of how to use Blessing and Spell Warding. Another great example in terms of raiding. Okay, let's go to the current raid, Antorus. Let's go to Coven, for example. So Coven, abilities from Nora, the Fiery Strike does fire damage. And so if you have a high stack of Fiery Strike, which I believe you'll see in one of the video clips later, you can use your Blessing and Spell Warding to make you immune to one of those at least. So that is super awesome. Nora usually does the most damage of them. And so that's one example. Also, if you look at the Torment of Norgannon, right? It inflicts 2.8 million arcane damage every 0.3 seconds to nearby players when you're trying to kite them around for 30 seconds or whatever. And a lot of times it's kind of awkward to find the gap, and then you're going to have to move the bosses on top of each other and all that. So if you have your Blessing and Spell Warding up, you can literally just move them through the line of adds, the Norgannon adds. You can put it on yourself and literally just walk right through, and you're going to be fine. It just makes dealing with this so easy on a Prot Paladin. Obviously, the Flames of Norgannon, it would work, or Khazgrav, it would work too, but nobody's going to get hit by that if you're good. So anyway, just to give you, that gives you some ideas, I think, of how to use it. I could, continue to talk all day about that, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was familiar with how to use Blessing and Spell Warding and maybe when to use it, what sort of scenario. If you cannot make use of that, so for example, on Aggramar, right, it might be better to use Blessing of Protection. You might see that in the video clip later as well. So on Aggramar, you'll see that the Foe Breaker does physical damage, and that's the main thing that's going to kill a tank, right? So you can actually bop yourself and taunt and become immune to one of those if you're running bop. So definitely would not want to run Spell Warding in that case. Maybe you want to run Cavalier for more mobility, or possibly Retribution, or if you don't need the mobility. So just make sure that you're aware. I usually run either Cavalier or Blessing and Spell Warding. And then Hand of the Protector is kind of a given. Hand of the Protector is so huge. It's just so characteristic of why Prot Paladins are strong. Hand of the Protector, if used effectively, is so good. So you look at what happens when you don't have it, and you get this ability called Light of the Protector, and it heals you, right? But the thing is, if you get Hand of the Protector, it is able to heal a friendly target. That is huge. So you can heal other people. So and it's also based on their missing health. So the less health they have, the more you're healing, which makes you as a tank really amazing at saving people's lives. So somebody drops to 5%, 1%, 10%, you can pop them back up really quickly with a Hand of the Protector, especially if you have wings activated. So Hand of the Protector is awesome. You can use it to heal yourself, obviously, still. Notice how when you switch, it's a 12.4 second cooldown. Hand of the Protector is a 8.3 second cooldown. So you're able to not only heal yourself more often, but you're also able to heal other people, which is just amazing. So don't even think about going anything else. I mean, this Knights Templar, I do actually do this when I'm trying to do old runs. Like when I really need a lot of mobility, I'll run Cavalier and Knights Templar because it reduces the cooldown of my Divine Steed by 50%, and that's just really good for mobility. And then Final Stand, yeah, no, okay, don't do that. Anyway, Hand of the Protector is going to be super awesome. I guess for a specific pull, maybe this would be good. Like if you can pull a whole bunch of people and then you could just bubble and taunt them for 8 seconds. But most of the time, okay, go to Hand of the Protector. Also, don't forget when you're in your Consecrate, it's going to heal you more. All right, so Consecrate, it heals you 20% more. So in my Consecrate, it'll heal me 20% more. All right, next row. Judgment of Light is usually what I run when there's enough people to make use of those 40 stacks. So you Judgment, there's 40 stacks, and then if you have enough people to make use of that, great. But remember, you are judging so often, right? You're judging like every 5 seconds. So, I mean, this is super nice if you have a ton of people attacking because you're always going to have Judgment of Light being refreshed. So in a raid scenario with 20 plus people, this is awesome. In a party scenario, not as useful, right? So Consecrated Ground is usually my go-to when I'm talking about Mythic Plus, and then raiding Judgment of Light. Consecrated Ground is going to allow you to do amazing things in Mythic Plus. It actually gives you a slow. It just increases your ability to kite. So if you're running, for example, Cavalier and Consecrated Ground, you got some high mobility, and then you also can slow everybody. So you put your Consecrate down, and then you just run away, and you're kiting, and your Consecrate actually slows. It doesn't heal you that much when you're standing in it, but obviously it gives you that little bit of heal too. So obviously it's going to help you more. Let's say if you're stacked up, or if you have a lot of melee DPS compared to ranged, but definitely a huge kiting potential here. Aegis of the Light just gives you another 3-minute cooldown if you need it. I don't usually use this, but it could have its use. So it protects all allies standing within 10 yards behind you. So that's kind of tricky. For 6 seconds only, reducing all damage by 20%. So this definitely has its use somewhere if you need an extra cooldown for your allies on a particular boss fight or whatever, for a one-shot mechanic or high mythic plus or something. So definitely consider that, but I usually do not run Aegis of the Light. Then the last one, you got Righteous Protector, which is usually my go-to because remember how it synchronizes well, it resonates with what you're doing here. So pretty much what's going to happen is you are going to be able to Judgment to reduce the cooldown of your Shield of Righteous. And then when you Shield of Righteous, you're going to be reducing the cooldown of your Light of the Protector, which is actually Hand of the Protector. So you're healing yourself even more often, right? So let me heal myself, right? And then watch this. So look at that heal. I can also heal myself again, and then boom, and then boom, and then I'll reduce the cooldown again, and then I can heal myself again, or somebody else, an ally. So using Judgment with Shield of Righteous and then Hand of the Protector, like able to reduce all those cooldowns, is like super awesome, and it resonates super well together. So you're going to most likely run this. Also, keep in mind it's going to allow you to Avenging Wrath more often, which again is allowing you to do more healing and more damage when that's up. So more uptime on your Avenging Wrath, you can't complain. This right here, I would only go this if I was only worried about doing damage. I mean, because remember, this kind of mainly buffs your heal. If you didn't have to worry about your heal much at all, I would probably go this. I have used it before. It helps your damage output, magnifies your power, increasing your haste, crit, mastery, and verse. I mean, obviously that's going to help you defensively as well. But it does consume 2 of your Shield of Righteous. So I don't really think about this as a defensive thing. I think about this as an offensive thing. And it's got a 45-second cooldown. It's a little awkward to try to time it and use it correctly. And I just find that it doesn't really resonate very well with my playstyle. So I usually don't use it. And then Last Defender, each enemy within 8 yards reduces the damage that you take and increases the damage that you deal. So to make maximum use of this, you're probably going to want to have a lot of enemies around you. Maybe running Last Defender with Final Stand, that could be good. Maybe if you're doing like a huge AoE pull or something. But I usually run Hand of the Protector and Righteous Protector. So I think that covers all of our talents, right? So let's move on to Artifact. So Artifact is interesting here. So once you get 75, you have everything unlocked pretty much in terms of your Crucible and everything. So I'm going to assume that you have at least Concordance. And so some things to point out. One is that your armor is increased by 10% from this. I just kind of want to go through this and make sure that you've read all this, right? This right here, Argent Defender grants an absorb shield for 12% of maximum health when it fades. So maybe you didn't know that, but you get an absorb shield when Argent Defender goes away. So Argent Defender is this ability which we can pop quite a bit. Speaking of which, it gets reduced, right? And this is actually one of your best things to look for in the Crucible, is this unflinching defense, because I actually got my Argent Defender down to a 1-minute cooldown, which is awesome, because this is pretty much going to prevent you from dying and bring you back to 12% of your maximum health instead, and then you're also going to get that absorb shield for 12% of your maximum health when it fades. So definitely good to know that. Here, each active Forbrance you have caused increased the cooldown recovery rate of your Forbrance causing abilities by 50%. So interesting to know that. So your Forbrance abilities are, for example, Lay on Hands, Blessing of Protection, Divine Shield, right? So you're familiar with what causes Forbrance, and that kind of helps you out there a little bit. This right here, the Enforcer, it causes Truth Guard, which is the name of your shield. It causes Truth Guard to deal a certain amount of damage to all enemies within 5 yards of each target hit by your Avenger Shield, which is pretty cool. So you could do a little extra AoE damage. Here, while Argent Defender is active, did you know this? While Argent Defender is active, all melee attacks that strike you deal damage back to the attacker. So Argent Defender actually helps you deal damage back to people. So pretty cool. You probably didn't think about popping Argent Defender offensively, but there it is. Okay, what else? You got this right here, reduces the cooldown of your Blessing of Sacrifice. Pretty cool. Hand of the Protector will also heal. Okay, this is big, right? So every time you use your Hand of the Protector, watch it. So it's going to give you a heal over time, which is awesome. And so I try to Hand of the Protector different targets so that I can get these HOTS out on multiple people. So definitely something to know about your artifact. And remember that you have increased armor when you're under 40% health. So being low is not necessarily a bad thing. Think about it. So when you're under 40% health, you have increased armor by 40%. That's a lot, right? And then also when you're low, your Hand of the Protector is going to heal more because it's healing for a percentage of your missing health. So try to time this so that you're low. Don't make your healers too scared, but when you're low, you actually are pretty tanky and you're in a decent position as a Prot Paladin. Also, Avenger Shield also shields you for 8 seconds, absorbing 50% as much damage as it dealt. So your Avenger Shield right here is actually giving you some absorb, which is pretty cool too. So I think that goes over a lot of the stuff. Also here, your Judgment grants you this thing that increases the damage reduction from your next Shield of the Righteous by 8%. So yet again, another great reason to go with that Judgment spec, the Crusader's Judgment, for defense, right? Because you're judgmenting more often, and then when you judgment, your next Shield of the Righteous is going to give you 8% more damage reduction. So that's pretty cool. In terms of your Crucible stuff, you're probably going to want to go for the unflinching defense. That's going to be most likely the best. Light speed is most likely going to be the best for your other one. So let's see if I have a light speed. I do. So light speed, you'll see the second one down there. Light speed gives you haste, which is really good for you. So light speed is probably going to be your best in terms of your tier 2 upgrade priority. Master of the Shadows is also good. Murderous Intent is also good. So definitely things to look for. But yeah, remember unflinching defense is super good. Increasing your block chance by the Bastion of Truth is super good. So definitely look for those. It's kind of luck of the draw, but I don't mind the Righteous Crusader increases the damage dealt by your Shield of the Righteous, and the Shield of the Righteous reduces the damage you take by an additional 1%. I don't mind that. But yeah, definitely unflinching defense if you can get that. That's awesome. Okay, so I think that covers your artifact. Let's move on to gear and legendaries. So your gear, your stat priority is going to be first, your stat priority is going to be haste, versatility, mastery, and then crit. So haste is going to allow you to increase your uptime on Shield of the Righteous and just allow you to get your abilities off faster. So that's awesome to get as much haste as you can. I probably don't have the best stats right now in terms of priority, but I try. It's kind of hard managing all three specs, but definitely haste, then versatility. Versatility obviously going to increase your damage and healing, but also reduce the damage that you take. So things that give haste and versatility are going to be really good for you. And then other than your stat priority in terms of your gear, remember your set bonus is all about block from Antorus at least, so make sure you're making maximum use of the gear here in terms of your set bonus. Also, you want to make sure that you know like what bosses all your good stuff drops off of. So I actually don't have the best shoulder, like the best piece of tier. I think I do, but I'm not actually wearing it. The best piece of tier for Prot is the shoulders off of Coven, I believe. So if you look at the shoulders off of Coven, yep, there it is. They give haste verse. So I'm not even properly set up here. But I just kind of went based off of the gear that I had. I have 955 of these, and I don't really have, I think I have like 930 shoulders or something like that. But the point is, definitely be looking for those shoulders off of Coven. You really want to be looking for this trinket off Aggramar, which I think is just really amazing. Okay, I can't talk enough about it. Smoldering Titan Guard, you really need that off of Aggramar. Yes, it gives mastery, which is not technically, your best stat, but the use effect is super amazing. Maybe not all the time, but it just gives you like another bubble. It's super good. So I use this. It's at 935, the one I have now, but it gives you pretty much a 19.2 million damage absorb. And then it actually does a ton of damage too. So if you pull a lot of people, and then you can actually use it for damage as well. So it does 1.6 million damage to all enemies around you. It unleashes 4 waves. So you got to be careful not to over pull with this, and you got to know how to use it. But if you know how to use this and you're able to predict a huge hit coming in, like for example, Lower Karazhan when that shared suffering comes in. Yet again, this is another way for you to get past that, so that your party doesn't have to share it with you. You can pop this Smoldering Titan Guard, and it's super, super good. So definitely be looking for Smoldering Titan Guard. There's some other interesting trinkets as well. So I don't actually have this one yet, but there's a trinket that drops off of Fellhounds, gives you stamina and versatility, and then it gives you armor. So that's pretty cool. I don't really have this yet, but definitely something that I would consider. And then if you look at what drops off Argus, obviously you could consider Aman'Thul's Vision if you're lucky enough to get that. But if you look at the tanking one here, so it actually gives you strength, and then it has a chance to give you versatility, so maybe something to consider. Anyway, looking at the legendaries, that's probably what you guys want to hear about. So I have some opinions on the legendaries here. So we got to go to the to adventure guide there. We got to go here. Okay, loot. Here we go. So the headpiece I think would be great. It gives you haste versatility, which is your #1 stat. I do not have this yet. I'm trying to get it. I have like a lot of them, but I don't have this. I'm trying to collect all the legendaries for all the specs, so I don't have them all yet. But this is one of the ones I would definitely try out because it's going to allow you to heal more. It gives you 1 more stack of Light of the Protector. Remember how we have 1 more stack of Judgment potentially to make maximum use out of Judgment? Well, this headpiece would allow you to make maximum use out of the Hand of the Protector for sure. It's going to reduce that cooldown as well. So you're going to be throwing off more heals, which I think is amazing. So look for that headpiece. I think it's going to be pretty strong in the right situations. Prides, not as good. I actually wore Prides for a while, and I thought it was like amazing, right? Because you get 25% of your maximum health as a shield. But wait, you don't. I didn't actually realize that this doesn't give you 25% anymore, because that would be overpowered because you have so much health as a tank. It gives you 15% of your maximum health. But Paladins usually don't have a lot of health. Like, they don't have as much health as other classes like Druids or Demon Hunters or like DKs. So Prides is probably not going to be something that you want. But hey, it's not going to hurt. But 15% of your health is not really that much. So Pillars, I got this. I didn't think I would ever use it, but I was wrong. Pillars is super good in the right situation. So I actually have different gear sets, you'll see over here, and I actually can just click a button and it switches me to my shoulders, and I will use this in between pulls. I will literally switch my gear if I need to, and this I will only use if there's a big pull. So if I have a bunch of, like, let's say Lower Karazhan, you might see a clip of this later, Lower Karazhan, and I'm running into a whole bunch of, like, pulling the entire audience, and I know there's going to be a ton of people. This is going to make your Eye of Tyr literally give you like over 10 million DPS instantly just by hitting one button, and it is amazing, and I can't speak highly enough about it, but only in the right situation, right? Also, if it makes it line up nicely, because it reduces the cooldown of it too, if it makes it line up nicely with boss abilities, you might want to consider it too, because it converts it to a 45-second cooldown instead of a minute. But I usually only use this when I'm about to do a big pull. Okay, so then the breastplate, I just got this, probably won't ever use it, but it does allow you to, if your Avenger shield reduces the remaining cooldown, so you would probably want to rock the first Avenger so you get more Avenger shields. So now you're hitting more often with your Avenger shields. And then the more you Avenger shield, you're going to reduce the cooldown of your Guardian of the Ancient Kings, which is like your huge ability, right? It's a 5-minute cooldown, but this would give you a mechanism of reducing that. So if you're constantly spamming your Avenger shield and you find it useful to have Guardian of the Ancient Kings up more often, breastplate might be for you. It also gives you haste verse, which is your top 2 stats. So pretty decent, but I most likely won't wear this because I find that when I need Guardian of the Ancient Kings, it's up, right? I don't need to reduce it because every 5 minutes is usually when you're hitting another boss, and I don't necessarily need it, but it could have its uses. The bracers, it does give you an extra heal, so it's going to allow you to heal for 15% of their maximum health. I believe it can crit as well. I used it for a little bit. It also gives you a longer Blessing of Sacrifice and Blessing of Protection, which actually should give you a longer Blessing of Spell Warding too. So maybe you want to run Uther's Guard with the Blessing of Spell Warding, and that's going to give you a longer immune to magic damage, potentially. I've never really found a use for that, but hey, just think about this stuff for different situations. And then the chain I usually use, so my top legendaries right now, like if I were to walk around and I had to stick with 2 legendaries, I would pick right now the chain and Soul of the High Lord. So Soul of the High Lord is going to allow you to, it's right here, it's going to allow you to get, remember, the best of both worlds in this first row. So Soul of the High Lord I think is amazing. It allows you to block those spells, but remember, you don't need to, if you don't need to block spells, then it's not that good of a legendary. So you probably don't want to use Soul of the High Lord if you're not at risk of magic damage. But it does allow you to get that. So I usually use this. It just kind of gives me the best of both worlds, and I don't have to worry about it. I definitely like this, and I also like the chain. So the chain is going to increase your healing done by 50%. That's a lot. And it's going to allow you to get some ridiculous heals off. So if somebody's at 2% health, you can literally top them off to full instantly with Avenging Wrath. You can actually start using Avenging Wrath as a defensive as well for healing. So if you're about to die, you're at 5% health, Avenging Wrath, and then right after Hand of the Protector, you're probably going to top yourself back off to full, which is pretty amazing. Okay, so Chain of Thrain pretty much makes your Avenging Wrath a much more powerful cooldown, much more powerful, and so I really like that because it kind of gives me another defensive, gives me another cooldown to throw into the mix. Your legs, I don't have them yet, but when I get them, I will absolutely use them for damage, right? So this allows your Avenger Shield to jump to 2 additional targets. So think about this. You got First Avenger, so you have more Avenger Shields, and your Avenger Shield's going to be doing the majority of your damage in like a Mythic plus AoE situation. And then you got the legs, which now it's hitting 2 additional targets, and it does 20% increased damage. So obviously, you're going to want to use this in terms of like AoE, right? Your Avenger Shield usually only hits 3 targets, so your target and 2 additional ones. This is going to allow it to hit another 2 additional ones for a total of 5. So if you're pulling 5 or more, you really want to use these legs. It's just going to give you unbeatable damage. However, I don't have them yet, so I can't use them. And so having different gear sets would be awesome. Safaz's Secret, I actually use this quite a bit too. This is, I would consider my kite. I wear this for kiting because the movement speed is super good. Like on Necrotic, for example, I will wear Safaz and I can kite around very easily with that extra movement speed. It also, that extra haste, remember that's like your best stat, so you're going to be able to do your abilities a lot quicker. Which is going to help you offensively and defensively. So Safaz's Secret is really awesome. Notice how I have a 200 haste socket in there and a 200 haste enchant on there. Let's see. So definitely Safaz, great pick. Soul of the High Lord when there's magic. And I did get this trinket. I don't find it all that good though. Because I think it kind of works against itself. So you gain an absorb shield for 30% of your maximum health. So yet again, it's not really for us as paladins, I don't think, because we don't really have a lot of maximum health to begin with. So if you were like stacking health, it'd be great. But notice how the trinket itself doesn't even give stamina. So think about how much health you're going to actually lose by using this trinket, because you no longer get stamina from a legendary, because this is going to take up one of your legendary spots and it doesn't give stamina. So you're going to lose a lot of health, but then it's going to give you an absorb based on your health. So I don't really think this is a good idea for us. And it also has an awkward cooldown of 1 minute and 15 seconds. And then Insignia of the Grand Army, not too bad if you have the right stuff like the light and shadow powers. Aggramar Stride for mobility. I think we went over pretty much all of it. So that's the legendaries. And the gear. And I think we will be moving on now to add-ons, keybinds, and macros. All right, so add-ons, keybinds, and macros. So if you watched my other guide on the Holy Paladin, you will kind of already know. what that is. But in terms of add-ons, I use DBM. Obviously, it's important to be able to watch the boss timers and predict damage so that you know when to pop your abilities. Bagnon, it's obviously not a big deal. It allows you to, have all your stuff in one place, and like you can search for a particular item if you want. So it's kind of nice. Doesn't really affect your gameplay though. Bartender 4, so that's all these bars that you see here. I like being able to use Bartender and move my bars all around and adjust the size and all that stuff. I have Details, which Details is over here, so that's my damage meter, so I can monitor damage done, healing done, damage taken, and dynamic overall damage. This I actually usually put on custom my spells, so I can actually see what abilities are doing what. So Shield of the Righteous, Judgment, Melee, I usually keep it at that, so I can monitor a whole bunch of data over here with Details. And then GTFO, which I use to alert me, give me some sound feedback to make sure I can get out of stuff that I'm not supposed to be standing in. ORA3, which pretty much I mainly use as a res timer, like just to keep track of like how many battle reses I have left when we're doing a raid. RCLootCouncil we use for some loot in the guild. Just allows loot to be distributed nicely. WeakAuras, that is, so let's pop some abilities here. Okay. So notice how the cooldowns are being monitored over here by WeakAuras. And I also have WeakAuras for sound feedback, so /WA. You'll see how, for example, Argent Defender, it's triggered here, and then it also plays a sound for me of a warning siren when it comes back off cooldown. When I Judgment, it triggers when the cooldown's ready. So if I'm not making maximum use of my Judgment, it'll yell at me with a like a cha-ching sound. All right, I also use it for monitoring my raid cooldowns. This is something more recent that I've done, so I can figure out who has an interrupt, who has an immunity, who has lay on hands, like battle res, stuff like that. So WeakAuras allows you to do some nice stuff, so I have that sitting there. And so whenever you don't think you're making maximum use of an ability, you should probably use WeakAuras or some other mod, because then you can get some sound feedback, and then you know when your abilities are ready to use again. Z-Perl unit frames I use, so that is right here. That is everything that you see in terms of like my three-dimensional portraits. I got focus down here. I can put focus on the boss, and that way if I have to switch to an ad, I can still see what the boss is doing easily. It's just nice and clean. I can adjust the sizes of everything. So it used to be called X-Perl, I believe, but now it's Z-Perl, and I do enjoy that. Also notice that pretty much all of these add-ons, the purpose is to give you more information to access the game and make better decisions. So pretty much the game is all about making decisions, and if you have mods like this and you have data in the right places, it's going to allow you to access that information more effectively and make better decisions. So notice how all of my main stuff is like towards the center of my screen, because that's where I'm looking. I think when you start off playing the game, like up in the top left corner is where usually your health bar and your target's health bar is, and nobody really looks up there as far as I know. I mean, I know I don't. So having everything nice in my view is pretty cool. So that's usually what I do with that, and I just use the regular raid frames from WoW over here, and then I can heal my raid and stuff like that. So I think that covers most of the add-ons. I also use Angry Keystones to help me out with Mythic Plus timers, like on a 2 chest, 3 chest, or whatever. I think this week I got a pretty interesting key. So let's see if I can find it. Here you go with Bagnon. There it is. 19 seat. So we'll see if we can do that. But anyway, having the Angry Keystone to mod to help you out with that is pretty cool. So I think that covers most of that. In terms of macros, there's definitely a couple I use that are really nice. One I can think of in specific here is it's a bubble macro right here. This bubble macro is amazing, okay? So pretty much what this allows you to do, I only use it as a tank. It allows you, for example, if you have necrotic or if you have something that you can bubble off, it allows you to use your Divine Shield, and then you got to be careful, but then you can click it again and remove it. So I'm going to press E. That's what I have it keybound to, and then notice how I have my Divine Shield, but then I can hit it again and it removes it. So this macro allows you to double tap E to clear stacks of something real quick, or maybe you want to immune a boss hit like taunt, and then like Divine Shield taunt, and then the second the taunt wears off you want to remove your Divine Shield. It just allows you to remove your Divine Shield a lot quicker than trying to click it off. So that would be a nice macro that I would use. You could also maybe keybind your Argent Defender in with maybe a defensive trinket. Just think about what you need to do. Like for example, I have my Avenging Wrath keybound with my Horn of Valor, so when I pop Avenging Wrath, my Horn of Valor also procs. So just kind of think about how you play and what makes sense to you and what you want to macro together maybe to make the game a little bit nicer for you. So I think that covers most of that. We also have to cover keybinds just for a second here. So keybinds, notice how I have all my main abilities on the top. So I have my Shield of the Righteous, I got my Bastion of Light if I use it, Flash of Light, Hand of the Protector. I try to have my abilities that are similar, close together. So my two heals are on the same button, separated by a shift modifier. I have Blessed Hammer and my Consecrate, so kind of like my two other abilities that I'm kind of spamming all the time. This is my two interrupts, right? So my Rebuke and then my Avenger Shield. Those are both mechanisms of interrupting. So I'm constantly spamming Avenger Shield. And then Hammer of Justice and my Taunt, and then Judgment and my Artifact Weapon. And you'll notice how where I placed all the other ones too. Now real quick, I'm going to switch specs. Notice how a lot of these abilities stay in the same places because I'm trying to be consistent across all three specs. Otherwise I would go insane. So notice how my Taunt's in the same place for Holy, for example. My Taunt's in the same place for Rat. So I have consistency between them. I thought a lot about where I want to put them. If I want to lay on hands somebody, obviously I want to lay on hands somebody the same in all three specs. There's a lot of abilities that carry over between the specs, and laying out your keybinds and laying out your abilities is an important way for you to maintain fluidity between the specs and be at your best. So think about that when you're keybinding things. I have a mouse that has 12 buttons on the side, so literally all this top is just on my mouse, so that's really awesome. And then I use R and E, and then I use a shift modifier, right? I use Q, and so I use V and B, and I use Z and Shift Z. I don't even need as many keybinds for Prot as I do for Holy, but I tried my best to keybind everything. It just allows you to hit it quicker and do clicking elsewhere other than on your abilities. So that summarizes up your add-ons, keybinds, macros. Let's get into your playstyle and abilities. So playstyle and abilities, how are you going to be playing? So let's just pretend like I'm engaging, right? I'm engaging a boss, for example. Here we go. So here's a Dungeoneer's training dummy. So let's say I'm engaging a boss. Now think about this real quick. When you Judgment, it's going to reduce the cooldown of your Shield of the Righteous, right? So you probably want to make sure you get a Shield of the Righteous off before you Judgment, which means you're probably not going to be using Judgment to pull, at least in my opinion, because you're trying to make maximum use of everything. You want to taunt, and remember when you taunt, it will increase the threat that you generate for 3 seconds. So especially on like skittish weeks, you want to be taunting on cooldown to generate threat, because not only does it force them to attack you, it increases the threat that you generate for 3 seconds. So even if you already have aggro, you need to be using this to generate additional threat if needed. So what I usually do is I start off with an Avenger Shield, and before my Avenger Shield even hits, I will pop my Hand of Reckoning, which means that when that Avenger Shield hits, it's going to be generating extra threat. And it's also going to force that person to attack me for 3 seconds. So then I'm going to get in there, and as quickly as I can, I'm going to get a Shield of the Righteous off, if I can. Sometimes I'll Judgment, but most of the time I try to get at least one Shield of the Righteous off first, because remember, then I can do my Judgment, and I can reduce the cooldown of that I just did it. So far, Avenger Shield, taunt, right, and then Shield of the Righteous, and then you can get your Judgments off. And then obviously when your Avenger Shield procs, you want to try to use it, and you also want to make sure you get your Consecrate down as quick as you can too, because remember, your Consecrate, while you're standing in Consecrate, Shield of Righteous effects are increased by 20%. So what I would do is something like this. So I'll throw my Avenger Shield, then I'll taunt and then I'll run in, hit, and then get my Consecrate down as quick as I can. And then you also want to make sure, I'll use my Judgment, so I'm trying to keep everything like on cooldown. Notice how I'm getting a whole bunch of stuff, right? I have a whole bunch of decisions to make. So usually you actually want to leave your Shield of Righteous alone, alright? So let's just look at this for a second. So leave your Shield of Righteous alone. I want to get that Judgment because I just got 2 stacks of that. But look at how I have 2 stacks, right? And then you can kind of build it up, and you want to use your Shield of Righteous when you know you're about to take damage, right? So look at the cast, for example, that this training dummy will do a cast on me. Right here. See how he just did a strike and I was able to time my Shield of the Righteous? So watch for that, and then just practice on your training dummy. Practice your reaction times. So the second you see that come off, you're going to want to hit, right? See? Before it hit me, I did the Shield of the Righteous. Practice your reaction time. When you see that the boss is about to hit you, you want to quickly do a Shield of the Righteous to reduce the damage. But you never want to keep this at 3. Also, you can do some cool tricks like this. So let's say you're low, right? Let me heal myself, and then I can double hit this, and then I can heal myself again. So remember that, as long as you're spec'd the way that I am here with this setup. So let's see that again. You can heal yourself, shield twice, and then heal yourself again. So you can get 2 heals off very quickly. Those are just a couple little combos. So get familiar with these cooldowns and these combinations of abilities that you can do. Don't spam Shield of the Righteous unless you need it. Remember, when you use Shield of the Righteous, the majority of what it's doing is reducing the damage that you take. So you want to make sure that you have it up when you need it, and you want to make sure that you're using it to reduce the cooldown of your Hand of the Protector. So never let it get to 3. You want to just kind of keep it at 2 or 1. And then never let your Judgment sit at 2 stacks if you're spec'd for it. So always keep your Judgment on cooldown if you can. And then use those Avenger Shield procs when you get them. Make sure you're using your Blessed Hammer to reduce the damage of their next auto attack. Right? So look at this. So the damage of the next auto attack's reduced. And then it's off, and then try to get it back on, right? So it reduces their auto attack damage. So try to keep that up. Obviously keep your Consecrate up too. So that's a huge thing. Because remember, when you're in your Consecrate, your Hand of the Protector is going to heal for an additional 20%. And also your Shield of the Righteous is going to be increased, the effectiveness of it and stuff like that. So shortly after you have combat, notice how I'm in my Consecrate now. So just focus for a second. My Consecrate's going to come up. Look at my buff over here. Consecrate's, but I still have the buff, right? Still have it, still have it, still have it. Okay, now it falls off. So you don't even necessarily have to pop Consecrate on cooldown. So it actually makes it pretty easy to have 100% uptime on Consecrate, because Consecrate lasts right now, at least for me, 10.8 seconds, whereas it only has a 7.47 second cooldown. So you can actually always have Consecrate up pretty easily. Like, even if you don't hit it right when it comes back up, you can put it down, and you can pretty much always be standing in your Consecrate. You can also use Consecrate to slow and kite if you have consecrated ground. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to kite mobs, you drop your consecrated ground. Remember, you need to be standing in it to be healed, but if you're trying to kite and you have that, it's going to reduce their movement speed. Judgment of Light, if you're spec for that, you're just going to put the Judgment of Light on them, and you don't really need to even worry about it. It's just going to be doing heals for your raid. Cavalier, how do you kite, right? So you're going to do this, and then you can try never to turn your back, right? Because every time you turn your back to an enemy, you're not really going to be able to like block, parry, like it's going to be hard. So you want to backpedal a lot of times, so that you're not turning your back to the people that are attacking you. And then also you can sidestep kind of, so try to like maybe do like a little bit of a jump turn type of deal, and so you kind of see how I can move backwards quickly without actually facing backwards by kind of like sidestepping, like doing some like V motions, and so that's one way to do it. And then obviously you can pop your Cavalier, and then and you can move a lot quicker. Also, if you have your Safuz secret, you can get that procced, and while you have that extra speed, you can be moving around kiting. So a lot of different strategies. Be aware of when you should kite and when you shouldn't. For example, in Mythic Plus, when you have when they enrage at 30%, let's say, make sure that either you have stuns lined up or you are ready to kite, because when they get enraged, then sometimes it's just not tankable. So you'll learn at some point that you just sometimes the best tanking is not actually being hit at all, right? The best damage is no damage. So if you are able to maintain aggro and do what you need to do, but also kite around, that's honestly ideal, right? Why wouldn't it be? Because you're able to do pretty much everything, and you're not taking any damage. So anywhere where you find an opportunity to kind of kite around and not take damage, but also do what you need to do, like maintain aggro and do your damage and stuff, like that's going to be great. So another thing is make sure you're managing your cooldowns properly. So you have, let's go over some of our cooldowns. So our cooldowns, obviously you have your Divine Shield, and your Divine Shield is mainly useful when you time it with a taunt. So remember, you taunt, it forces them to attack you for 3 seconds, and you can bubble. So let's practice this. So real quick, like let's say I wanted to bubble taunt, right? So let's say the boss is about to do like a crazy ability, like I'm going to taunt, and then I'm going to bubble. And then right when this is about to wear off, I'm going to remove my bubble. Okay? So that is going to give you at least 3 seconds of immunity to a boss, where the boss is kind of forced to hit you while you're immune, which is awesome. So that takes some practice. It is an amazing immunity, though. It's like something that no other tank has, really, as strong as you do. Guardian of the Ancient Kings, same thing with pretty much a 5-minute cooldown. You use that, and it simply just reduces the damage you take. Try to spread these cooldowns out. Very rarely will I use everything at once, but sometimes I'll use Argent Defender and Guardian of the Ancient Kings, but keep in mind you're going to be using Argent Defender a lot more often. So you can use this, but it's a 5-minute cooldown, right? And you can use this, it's only a 1-minute cooldown. So remember, when you use this, you are going to it's kind of like a cheat death. So you want to use this when you're afraid that you might die from an attack, and also as just a, passive damage reduction by 20%. So try to spread these out. Then you also have your wings, especially if you're running the belt, because your belt's going to increase your healing by an additional 50%. So let me just do a heal real quick. I'll just do a flashlight. Okay, so flash of light for like 400. Oh, it crits for like 944. It hits for like 472. And then when I wings, it crits for like 2 mil. And then I can do this, and it's going to heal me a lot more too, the Hand of the Protector. But obviously Flash of Light's hitting for like double. And notice how my Horn of Valor went off too, so that increases my main stat. So that's the one I'm using right now. I find Horn of Valor is pretty cool. It gives me like a really powerful cooldown whenever I Avenging Wrath. So yeah, you definitely want to manage that as well as a cooldown, your Avenging Wrath, whenever you want to do some major damage, or you want to generate a whole bunch of initial threat on a bunch of mobs. Just get in there and burst stuff down. Like, you have a lot of burst damage as a Prot Paladin. So get in there with your wings real quick. You can use it as a damage or a healing cooldown. You can use it offensively or defensively, especially if you have Chain of Terrain. It really opens up the option to using it as a defensive cooldown for that extra healing done, especially when you can heal yourself and then hit twice and then heal yourself again while you have wings up. I mean, that's pretty strong. Okay, in the duration of your wings, you can be throwing out ridiculous heals on your raid and on yourself, and on the off tank and stuff like that. So then this Titan Guard, if you have it, you want to use it. Look at that huge shield I get, and then it bursts flames out. So if you have that trinket, that becomes another 2-minute awesome cooldown that you can use. Your Eye of Tears, a 1-minute cooldown, 45 seconds if you have the shoulders, but you use that, and now it's on the enemy. It bursts out radially, and it reduces the damage that those people are doing to you by 25%. So you want to make sure that you're in range. Eye of Tear becomes more effective when there's more people, but obviously you can still use it if there's just one. So if I'm going into a big group of people, one of the first things I do is Eye of Tear, and it helps me with my initial threat, especially if I have the shoulders on. If I'm using the shoulders, it allows me to do some ridiculous damage if I pull enough people. So Eye of Tear, definitely a cooldown that you want to be monitoring too. So every 1 minute you have your Eye of Tear and you have your Argent Defender, depending on how many points you have in that unflinching defense or whatever that is that reduces the Argent Defender cooldown. So you got every 1 minute you got Eye of Tear and you got Argent Defender, and then every 2 minutes pretty much you got your Avenging Wrath. But remember your Avenging Wrath, let's pop it. Watch this. So watch it go down, right? If you watch it, 144, ready? 142, ready? Yeah, it goes down. So that's because my Righteous Protector reduces the remaining cooldown onto my Avenging Wrath. So you actually have your Avenging Wrath up more often if you're running that. So Avenging Wrath becomes a really good cooldown that you can use quite a bit. And then you got your Guardian of the Ancient Kings every 5 minutes. Also, Blessing of Sacrifice you can use, especially on off tank, like if you're tanking with a partner. Blessing of Sacrifice is just like amazing. Like, it literally allows you to make another tank take 30% reduced damage, like, because it's being transferred to you. Like, it's really awesome that you can do that. You can also bop. Or use your Blessing of Spell Warding. Remember, if you have that to make yourself immune, it becomes a huge deal. This is a 3-minute cooldown. Your Bop's a 5-minute cooldown. Lay on Hands is huge. Yes, it's like a 10-minute cooldown, but hey, if you can lay on hands, remember, as a tank you have quite a bit of health. If you can throw a Lay on Hands on somebody, it's instantly going to heal them from 0 to full. I mean, that's awesome, especially on like another tank. So you have some really good tools to help out your tanks, and you also have freedom too, so you can freedom yourself to get yourself out of movement and parrying effects and kite better and all that good stuff. So make sure you're using all that. I use Pusher and Prolonged Power as well before I pull any fight. You use Pusher and Prolonged Power. I'll use one quick. See how I go up over 10 million health. So all stats are increased by 2,500, so it's definitely going to help you out. Prolonged Power is just my go-to. So try to make sure you're using that pre-pot before the boss, and then you can use it again after. And then obviously a Health Stone is ideal because it's going to restore 25% of your health, and you have quite a bit of health, whereas a Health Potion is not going to do as much. For flasks, you're probably going to go with the Stam Flask, but you could also maybe go with the Strength Flask. Lavish Suramar Feast is going to give you that 500 or whatever stamina. But if you don't have any other food, probably go with the Zari Salad. Or sometimes you want to go with like Bear Tartar or Fighter Chow, depending. But that gives you an idea what to do with your food. So I think that covers most of the play style as to how you're going to play. You just got to make sure that you're communicating with your party and your raid, and especially your off tank. If you're tanking with somebody else, make sure you're communicating with them. Make sure you know when you're taunting. Remember, as a tank, it is your job not just to tank, but to really control the fight. your main job is control. You're controlling the pace. Like if you're in a Mythic Plus, you are controlling how fast you're pulling. And you really need to be a good leader, I think, because if you don't know how to lead your party and like what sort of tools your raid and party has, you might set your raid or party up for failure if you pull too much, or if you position the boss in the wrong way where the melee can't effectively do what they're supposed to do, or if you accidentally drag mobs out of, let's say a warrior pops a Ravager, like a big cooldown, and then you pull everybody out of it. Like, that's not very nice, right? What about if you have a mob and you're just dragging it out of line of sight of your ranged? That's super annoying. So you really want to be mindful of the people around you as a tank. Not only can you heal them and give them all sorts of blessings and help in that way, you need to control where things are positioned, and you need to communicate with your off tank. Who's taunting when, what sort of cooldowns am I popping, and just kind of know your strengths and weaknesses of your party and your raid in order to go at the right pace and control the raid or the dungeon accordingly. So definitely keep that in mind when you're tanking. And I think that wraps it up. Just I want to throw out one more comment on cleanse. So you can cleanse yourself. So for example, if you're in Cathedral of Eternal Night or whatever, and you get the spiders on you and they're putting that poison on you, you can cleanse yourself. And cleanse also procs your Safaz if you're wearing Safaz, so definitely be aware that you can cleanse yourself. A lot of Prot Paladins don't know that. You can't cleanse magic, but you can cleanse poison and disease, which comes in handy for certain bosses. So, without further ado, we will switch over now to some videos. I will show you a little bit out of a Mythic Plus. I'll show you some raid videos. Keep in mind some of the videos that I'm showing you, I'm doing things that I probably shouldn't do, but I'm showing you kind of the limitations of a tank. So in one of the videos you'll see I'm running into a whole bunch of people and just kind of going crazy and just kind of showing you, what you can do and how much damage you can do. And then another boss fight, I'm taking as many stacks as I can. I'm not taunting off when I'm supposed to, like I'm not having the taunt swap happen, just because I want to show you how strong a Prot Paladin is and how to manage the cooldowns properly. So just keep that in mind as you watch the videos, but hopefully the videos are helpful. Remember that communication is key, and some of the videos you might hear some communication, and just be aware that that's huge as a Paladin, just as a tank in general. So enjoy the videos.
That sweeping strike execute.
Now this is going to be somewhat big, so just don't pull anything extra and don't be in the swirlies. Just get out of the swirlies or you'll get stunned. I picked him up. Careful. Just get okay. I'll try to group them up. Here they are. Nice. Get out of that. Flash. Final curtain will kill you and the other one will stun you. Good. Alright guys, get ready.
You did it.
Wait a second.
Five, 4.
We don't even have to do safe zones on this, right?
1.
Do you want me to get them a little closer, or?
fire Addons. But kind of good seconds. Oh wait. According to my WoW analyzer, I should be popping Divine Him, though nobody needs it. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, it's like you could have used it 3 times in that fight. Like, okay.
You want me to fun? I'm at 8 stacks of whatever this is.
He's EPing right now.
Ready? Out of the middle, out of the middle, out of the middle. Out of the middle! Alright, what is in my range to heal this damage?
Bam! You want me to get her?
Pop them coolies, bro.
Nope, I'm taking her.
I couldn't renew on you, bro.
I already did. Oh, you tore her back, you Just want to let the record show I did fought after 11 stacks.
Be like, man, I'm blaming you, bro. Blaming you, bro.
Ow! Yeah, he switched right to me. I'm gonna go help.
Ads don't stand on you. Over that. I hope everyone's in Discord. That's all. Dude, stop showing up, bro.
The foe breaker is physical damage. So I'm gonna respec and go Cavalier. Okay. Let's. I want to try something out, dude. All right.
Gonna die.
No, we're not gonna die.
Here comes the white.
All right. Here comes the pull from the rear.
5, 4, 3.
I'm taking first again, or you are?
I can tank first. Bam! Just cuddle with me. Okay.
Set it on now, so I did.
Yeah, go ahead. Whoa. I got blessing in a second. And I'm gonna taunt. Okay, I should be able to do all of it. Just get ready to get behind, Demon Speed, get behind. Okay, I'm facing it.
Yeah,
I got the whole thing, dude, don't worry about it.
He said, no!
No, I got it, dude, I got it. Ah. Never mind.
Did I not do that right?
Now towards the raid. Oh. Did you get blown off?
Yeah.
Jesus, dude.
I think it's a reset, bro.
No, it's not. Oh, yeah. Somebody has to tank the other thing. Dude, yeah, you just had to tank that one towards the raid. Can somebody else get that other one? Oh, geez.
Georgie?
There, Georgie's got it. Georgie the Porridge.
I got you,
Look at
Georgie.
that.
Spam heal you, bro.
Why is enhancement there?
So,
Eat scrub, bro.
you know, yeah. Go.
No, Georgie!
I got him.
Notice how I'm standing
Kill the
next
one
to
on
this
Georgie.
bull.
I killed one on Georgie for Jesus.
Don't let the little ones get to the middle.
Oh yeah, don't do that. Oh,
Alright, I'll have to get the next flame thing or whatever by myself. Then. Oh god, and then Georgie, you're gonna have to take the hits with me. Epic.
He's just gonna have
Can we
to
not res Demon?
I don't think so, he got knocked off.
I'm at 42% mana here.
Well actually, wait, it doesn't look like it's hitting anybody else. I can just take it myself. In Heroic, I don't think I could, but...
listen to it. They're using the milk.
I have a lot of stacks. That's alright.
4,
Sorry, all it does
One.
is increase physical damage by 100%.
Yeah. Hey, now, yeah, come on, towards the raid now. Alright, now back on me, baby. Oh, you like it? Back towards the raid?
Run away, little girl.
Run away. Dude, that's how it's done. Just saying. I won't be able to do the next one, though.
So how are we gonna do this?
Does anybody have a immune, or does Georgie have like a massive like CC or something?
See if the lies can run to the back of the thing in battle mode.
It's physical damage. Does somebody have a bop? We don't have another paladin, do we?
I could try bubbling, but I have like a minute. Cool down.
Okay, here's the first one.
Does Georgie need to take a hit? If he does,
I might die. Oh, okay, I didn't. I'll try it, but we'll see. I'll try it. I did it! Dude!
nice.
This is how it's done, dude.
Oh my god. Boss positioning sucks.
Excuse me. I'm trying my best.
Hey, you try harder. You try harder.
I am, dude. You're not supposed to one tank this.
Normal. Right, that's right, bro. I don't blame you. Other people might, but I don't.
4, 3,
Thought it was
Next
simple.
technique, baby.
1.
It's coming on me.
Oh, shit.
Okay, next.
Yeah, dude.
And then...
You.
No, I got it.
Got it?
Dude, I had it.
Nothing, bro.
Back on me. The right. Got it. I had it. No, get Velize up. We need the damage. Oh, no. Now, Georgie, take the other one. The other one, dude, on the other side. Yeah.
Bam! Kill Georgie's big head.
Dude, I got a blessing of sack on you, Georgie.
The small ads. Kill the small ads.
Yeah, don't let the small odds get in. Come on. CC him.
Shut up, Georgie!
I'm trying to heal you, Georgie.
Oh, fuck. I got in. Correct.
He's still on.
No, another one's gonna get in. Quick. I think we got it.
Oh,
I got you, Georgie.
no. Bullshit.
Get on Georgie's mom.
Yeah. Gonna die again. No, man.
Did you get Georgie?
Bam!
I got him. Dude, I am healing him so much, dude.
We have a
Alright,
priest.
watch out. We can onk, right? Ratchet can onk.
Alright.
Dude, the boss is out. Kill that Ed. Okay, get off of me. Get off of me. Okay, I'm about to do. I have 16 stacks, dude.
Fucker, bro. Got tape now.
4, 3, 2, 1.
It's on me.
I'm somebody.
Okay, on the raid, stack up.
Say a healer if anybody.
No, we need
Okay, it's on me.
There's no enraged
On
time.
the raid again. Yeah, you're definitely not supposed to be one taking it, but we got this.
We got one res. Can we get anybody up?
Velize, right? Like, how are you healers doing for mana? Good?
Oh,
18%.
low shit, bro.
Yeah, just get Velize, we need some more damage. Alright, so this is the end. I hope that you learned more about your Protection Paladin, and I hope that you implement some of the things that you've heard in this video to improve your gameplay. Please let me know what you think, and maybe I missed something, or maybe you have some sort of a trick that you do that would help others. So please comment and like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.